You got your hair permed, you got your red dress on, screaming that second gear was such a turn on. And the fog forming on my window tells me that the morning's here and you'll be gone before too long. Who taught you those new tricks? Damn, I shouldn't start that talk. But life is one big question when you're staring at the clock. And the answer's always waiting at that health food store. 40 ounces of fresh squeeze, so I take that walk. And I know that, I'm not going back. What's up, fam? It's your boy Mog here, channeling his inner Garrison Keeler, singing you a little song to get you going. As you can see, I got my tinfoil hat on today. They're actually really easy to make. Never made one before today, but wow, not that difficult. You know, lately as the show has been getting more support, more people tuning in, we had a whopping 350 viewers at one point the other day. The trolls came out in force. And so, yes, I'm putting on the tinfoil hat. What's up, Brian Peterson? What's up, Mark? Yeah, we're going to feed the trolls just a little bit today with the tinfoil. If anybody's offended, I'll take it off. But again, anytime a troll accuses you of wearing a tinfoil hat, you might want to inform them that tinfoil hasn't been widely available since World War II. I got the Wikipedia page on tinfoil up here just to let you all know. You know, it's important to stay informed, stay aware, and it's amazing what you can learn on the internet, right? That's why we're here, to learn, to share. Tinfoil, also spelled tinfoil, is a thin foil made of tin. Actual tin foil was superseded after World War II by cheaper and more durable aluminum foil, which is still referred to as tin foil in some regions. Okay, so super fascinating. Now you know. Interestingly, aluminum foil, of course, aluminum we all know is neurotoxic. It's very bad for people. It gets into your brain, give you the Alzheimer's disease, give you all sorts of things. So I don't really recommend cooking with tin foil or aluminum foil because it's not good for you. But luckily, when you eat tin foil, most of it just goes through you. It doesn't really get absorbed. Now, the real problem comes from very small particles of aluminum, nanoparticles of aluminum being respirated or breathed in, right? And unfortunately, that's happening all too commonly these days. So watch out for the aluminum. And if somebody accuses you of wearing a tinfoil hat, well, just tell them, hey, man, that's aluminum foil. And I'd be more concerned about aluminum being breathed in and getting into your brain than wearing it as a piece of headgear, right? Thank you all so much for tuning in. We got a lot of great comments already. I want to tell you, someone's triggered. Sorry about that. I want to talk briefly, too, about a situation that, you know, I haven't mentioned it publicly, but I'm kind of getting, you know how you start to have a feeling sometimes? And I don't know, I don't want to say too much about it, but basically, after Standing Rock, I invited a brother and sister team from Wyoming, from the res, to come stay with me. The brothers decided they didn't want to come. The sister came, and she brought her girlfriend along with her, and they were living with me for about a month. Yeah, I sold them a van. I sold them my van that I was actually using out at Standing Rock. I'll drop a picture of that in there if I can. I don't know, the comments aren't really working very well. But I just want to touch on it briefly here while we got a nice audience of 120 people and let people know, you know, if you ever see anybody like questioning my morals or my motivations on the internet, please let me know and take it with a grain of salt. Long story short, I sold these people my van and gave them a free place to live, set them up with jobs, but they never paid me for the van, and they kind of took off right after that happened. So it was a real bummer. I don't want to say too much about it, but just, I don't know, just throwing it out there, letting people know. Somebody's asking who's punching the punching bag. Nobody. I like swinging that thing a little beforehand, just to, I don't know, give you guys something interesting to look at in the background. Yeah, I've even been playing. It's funny, I went back to my home back in Minnesota where I grew up, and even got all my old stuffed animals from when I was a little kid. So I set a couple of those up on the desk just to make it interesting. Somebody said that the background here looked a lot like I Spy. There's all sorts of things back there, and you know, try to keep it fun. But just wanted to briefly touch on that Standing Rock story and let you know, if you see anybody talking smack on me on the internet, please let me know, because, you know, I'm not trying to create drama around the situation. I'm not trying to name names. But at the same time, I don't know what to do. I've been kind of silent about it since it happened. But long story short, these people promised to pay me $2,000, and now we're like 7-8 months later. Still haven't seen any of that money. So it is what it is. But on the flip side, I want to say thank you briefly here to everybody who has supported the show. Okay? It's amazing, the support coming out of the woodwork. We have 6 supporters now on Patreon. Big thanks to Edward Bossier, Irene Lyon, Evan Simpson, Zachary Coons, David Coco Rico Sedano, and my first supporter ever, Brian Peterson. Thank you so much. With your help, I recently ordered all the equipment it's going to take to get the phone lines going here. So we'll be able to take calls real soon. Obviously not on this phone, but on another landline phone. So thank you. Lots of static. Yeah, you know, my computer seems a little gummed up today. And important to note for you all, if we are going to be receiving calls, we got to be a little careful, because coming out of Tech Dirt, just the other day on the 14th, if you use a landline to talk about criminal activity, the government can seize the house around it through the civil asset forfeiture laws. The manual instructs agents seeking to seize a property to work with confidential informants, scour tax records, and even obtain an interception warrant to determine whether a telephone located on the property was used to plan or discuss criminal activity in order to justify seizing the entire home. So, you know, if you're going to call in to Wake Up Wyoming, please don't discuss any overtly criminal activity, or they might take my house away. Probably not, but just interesting, you know, tying it into the news. Let's get right into it. As usual, we are looking at the Jackson Hole Daily, the paper servicing the wealthiest county per capita in North America. Actually a really great paper today on Friday. The local reporters really showing their stuff and doing some good work. Yesterday, the Thursday edition, it's in there, the Iditarod dogs, some dogs, not all of them, but some tested positive for opioid painkillers. You know, the opioid epidemic in the United States is gotten out of hand when even the Iditarod dogs are on the smack, right? It's sad, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I could read you that article, but it's not that exciting. Man, my computer is so gummed up today. Again, thanks to your support, I got a new webcam coming, so it'll be a much better picture. I'll be able to hook up a faster computer, hopefully do some screen sharing, get you on the phone lines. And that's entirely due to the support of people via Patreon and PayPal. I forgot to mention Rhino Bossier also ponying up $50 via PayPal, so thank you so much. Chrissy A. Hoskins chiming in, planning a move in a few years, so thinking about Wyoming, but I do like where I am, right? You know, Wyoming's a good place, I have to say. If you want to live someplace that's pretty cool, Wyoming's a good spot. And I mentioned this the other day, too. Anybody out there in Wake Up Wyoming land that is thinking about a move, wants to, like, get settled in a new zone, I might be able to help you out because I'm pretty well connected, well integrated in the community here. And what better way to build like an army of aware people than to have the viewers of Wake Up Wyoming come on out here to Wyoming. Beautiful alpine Wyoming. Truly a beautiful day here. Again, there's no shortage of jobs in the area, but finding an affordable place to live is a whole different thing, right? Looking at the paper, again, the Iditarod dogs testing positive for opioids. There's actually a really great editorial here in the opinion section by Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times about the opioid crisis. We also have a great article by Charles Hughes Smith. Okay, I had 2 friends die last winter from opioids, so I take this issue to heart. Also, the fact that over 60,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses last year, pretty serious. You know, more people die from prescription drugs than from street drugs. And I'm going to read this because, you know, recently 60 Minutes did a report on this. The Washington Post did a report on this. And in a country where we're always, you know, the healthcare system's in shambles, and it's made a huge issue by the politicians who fail to really do anything super effective to rein in the medical mafia, it's good to see the mainstream media actually thinking about this. For decades, America has waged an ineffective war on drug pushers and drug lords, from Bronx street corners to Medellin, Colombia, regarding them as among the most contemptible specimens of humanity. Okay, bear in mind, I got to say it, the U.S. government has been running drugs for a very long time. If you don't doubt that, go watch the new Tom Cruise movie, In Theaters, American Made, where they openly admit that the CIA was at least aware that Bernie Seal was smuggling cocaine back into the U.S. when he would bring weapons down to Central America, South America for them. But the real story is the CIA has been running drugs for a long time. You can trace this. You can trace the disturbing situation of governments running drugs all the way back to the British Empire. The East India Tea Company, one of their largest products, one of their most profitable products, shipping it all over the world, was in fact opium, right? Anyway, onward. One reason our efforts fail is we ignore the biggest drug pushers of all, U.S. pharmaceutical companies. Nicholas Kristof, you're forgetting Uncle Sam pushes drugs too. Our policy has been, you get 15 people hooked on opioids, and you're a thug who deserves to rot in hell. You get 150,000 people hooked, and you're a marketing genius who deserves a big bonus. Big Pharma should be writhing in embarrassment this week after the Washington Post in 60 Minutes reported that pharmaceutical lobbyists have manipulated Congress to hamstring the DEA. But the abuse goes far beyond that. The industry systematically manipulated the entire country for 25 years, and its executives are responsible for many of the 64,000 deaths of Americans last year from drugs, more than the number of Americans who died in the Vietnam and Iraq wars combined. That's right, 64 million Americans died from drugs last year. The opioid crisis unfolded because greedy people, Latin drug lords and U.S. pharma executives alike, lost their humanity when they saw the astounding profits that could be made. You forgot to mention Uncle Sam, Nicholas. Today, 75% of people with opioid addictions begin with prescription painkillers. The slide starts not on a street corner, but in a doctor's office. That's because pharmaceutical companies in the 90s sought to promote opioid painkillers as new blockbuster drugs. Company executives accused doctors of often undertreating pain. The companies backed front organizations like the American Pain Foundation, which purported to speak on behalf of suffering patients. Opioid promoters hailed opioids as safe and effective, and they particularly encouraged opioids for returning veterans. One reason so many vets have suffered addictions. Companies even argued that signs of addiction were a reason to prescribe more opioids. Endo Pharmaceuticals distributed a book suggesting that when a patient showed strange behavior, the clinician's first response should be to increase the dose of opioids. Several of these examples come from a lawsuit by Ohio against major pharmaceutical companies including Purdue, Teva, Cephalon, Johnson & Johnson, and Janssen. A company affiliated with Purdue pleaded guilty of felony fraud in connection with its marketing of OxyContin, but none of its executives went to prison. Drug companies have employed roughly the same strategy as street corner pushers. Get somebody hooked, and business will take care of itself. A Senate investigation found that one company, Insys Therapeutics, successfully redirected a powerful opioid called Subsys, meant for cancer pain, to patients without cancer. Sarah Fuller, a woman with neck and back pain, was prescribed Subsys by her doctor and received payments from Insys. Yeah, you know, doctors get kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies if they sell a certain amount of a drug or give out a certain number of vaccinations, right? Fuller died of an overdose of Subsys. It's maddening that the public narrative is still about an opioid crisis fueled by the personal weakness and irresponsibility of users. No, it's fueled primarily by the greed and irresponsibility of drug lords, including the kind in executive suites. The Washington Post quoted a former DEA official as referring to pharmaceutical company representatives as drug dealers in lab coats. I was invited the other day to a gala honoring the CEO of one of these pharma companies for his moral leadership. I wanted to throw up. Since 2000, more than 200,000 Americans have died from overdoses of prescription opioids. Yep, you heard that right. 200,000 from prescription opioids alone. The consequence of a deliberate strategy to make money by ignoring public welfare. Our pattern of opioid addiction points to a tragedy driven by the greed of some of Americans' leading companies and business executives, systematically manipulating doctors and patients and killing people on a scale that terrorists could never dream of. Well, I don't know, because the real terrorists are arguably the government, the military-industrial complex. They kill a lot of people on a very large scale. There's a lot of talk in the Trump administration about lifting regulations to free up the dynamism of corporations. Really? You want to see the consequences of unfettered pharma? Go visit a cemetery. Okay, so powerful words there from Nicholas Kristof, the New York Times. Of course, he's not really mentioning the fact that the U.S. government has been pushing drugs for a real long time. Again, if you want a basic intro to the fact that the drug war is actually a war on competition and the biggest pusher of drugs in the world is actually Uncle Sam, go see the Tom Cruise movie, American Made. It doesn't give you the whole story, but it's a great intro. And then check out the Mina Cocaine Connection documentary. This stuff's old hat. My old boss, Mike Rupert, was talking about this back in the mid-1970s when he was an LAPD narcotics detective recruited by the CIA to look the other way as they were smuggling cocaine into Los Angeles. Okay, he thought it was isolated corruption, so he blew the whistle, and he got fired, he got blacklisted, he got shot at, and he became the man who taught me so much. Thank you, Mike. Rest in peace. In similar news, you can knock out 2 predictive programming propaganda pieces in one fell swoop. Geostorm and Only the Brave are opening tonight. I think I'm going to go see them both. Y'all, I'm sure y'all know that trick where you can, you know, kind of get a twofer on movies. So I'm hoping to go to the 7:30 showing of Only the Brave and the 9:30 showing of Geostorm to let y'all know. Anybody in the Jackson area that wants to come with me, come on with. Again, it's funny, these 2 propaganda pieces have very similar advertising. Like the fonts are the same, the total layout's the same, even the imagery is very similar. So it's interesting, not surprising to see some predictive programming coming out of the mainstream regarding the geoengineering issues and these unusual wildfires all over California, right? J. Scott North chiming in, Afghanistan poppy fields. Oh, and back onto the drug thing. It's funny, I had a, sorry, I'm blanking on your name right now, brother, but I probably don't want to mention it anyway. One of our viewers here at Wake Up Wyoming told me that he recently went into the doctor for just a small infection. I think it was an eye infection or an ear infection, and he wanted to get some antibiotics. Well, the doctor even though he wasn't complaining about pain, the doctor tried to prescribe him opioids as well to deal with an ear infection. Isn't that insane? It's utterly insane. J. Scott North chiming in Afghanistan, poppy fields. Amen, brother. We cover that issue here a lot at Wake Up Wyoming. The fact that the U.S. invaded Afghanistan in 2001 because in 2000, for many reasons, but the main reason was because in 2000, the Taliban, CIA asset Tim Osman, a.k.a. Osama bin Laden, was our homeboy fighting against the Russians to control the global opium trade. But then in 2000, they turned against Uncle Sam, decided they were tired of being the world's opium breadbasket, so to speak, and they burned the fields. It went from producing 90% of the world's opium to 10% in just a year, right? Huge change there. And then Uncle Sam invaded. Now, Afghanistan producing unprecedented record levels of opioids. And now, no big surprise, we got an opioid epidemic here in the USA. There's a good article I just pasted in there, too, from Charles Hugh Smith of Two Minds. Fraud, Exploitation, and Collusion, America's Pharmaceutical Industry. America's pharmaceutical industry takes pride of place in this week's theme of the rot within, as the industry has raised fraud, exploitation, and collusion to systemic perfection. What other industry can routinely kill hundreds of thousands of Americans and suffer no blowback? Only recently has the toll of needless deaths from the opioid pandemic finally roused the comatose corporate media and bought and paid for no-see-evil Congress to wonder if maybe there should be some limits placed on Big Pharma and its drug distributors. And he cites that Washington Post article and the 60 Minutes investigation into how the drug companies and Congress work to cripple the DEA's ability to fight the opioid epidemic. What other industry can raise prices anytime it wants because, well, it can? Longtime correspondent and physician JF recently submitted a chart of medication prices. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, just the usual because we can price increases. And it throws it in here, for example, these are common drugs, and basically from 2013 to 2015, the price of these drugs went up between 35 and 45%, basically about 25 times the 1.7% quoted inflation rate for that time. And then if we look at, there's also a real fun image here where he shows the drug-induced deaths per million population for Americans aged 15 to 65. And I'm pasting that in now. The USA, we have 185 drug-induced deaths annually per million Americans. And the closest second is Estonia with 100. So we're almost double anybody else, right? Spain, you got 15. Portugal, 6. The average in the EU, 21.3. So in the US, we have literally 9 times as many Americans dying of drug overdoses than the EU. Okay, that's a big deal. We also spend more than twice as much on healthcare as a function of GDP. So riddle me that. Moving along. Again, I was really pleased to see the Jacksonville Daily has got some great coverage of local issues today. I'm just going to hit those out real briefly. This is written by somebody locally. It's not from the AP, so that's good. And she actually interviewed people. Kylie Moore, great job on your article today. She interviewed people from the Blue Cross Blue Shield. Long story short, it's important to note, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming factored that possibility, the possibility that the Trump administration would cut the cost-sharing reduction payment reimbursements under the Affordable Care Act into their 48% average rate increase earlier this year. That's right, healthcare costs in Wyoming went up 48% this year. Pretty wild. Pretty ridiculous. But that's a great article. The Obamacare thing's just a disaster. Cool to see Wyoming state government is figuring out ways to cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of their budget. And then in a piece of hope, bringing news here locally in Jackson Hole, another local article, great article by John Spina. They're building this huge power plant, solar power plant, down at the waste treatment center to supplement one that's already there. If you're interested in investing, and community members, community organizations can invest in this. Those interested in more info or investing can contact Phil Cameron at the Energy Conservation Works or Larry Pardee at the Town of Jackson Public Works Department. So I'm not going to read that for everybody because we probably don't have too many people locally watching this show, but it's pretty cool. See some positive changes here in Jackson Hole. You know, I have to say, like Jackson, because it's so wealthy, because of its location, because there's so many well-educated environmental people here, Jackson could be like this incubator for the way forward, but it's not. Thank you so much. People love the shirt I'm wearing, and they love the punching bag, right? I'll show you the shirt. Try to stand still here. Maybe I'm going to kill a light. Hold on. It's too bright. Oh. There. That's probably a little better. There's the shirt. Yeah, I got this from Ron Paul Swag a long time ago, maybe back in 2012. But it pretty much sums up how the Federal Reserve System works. That's a political cartoon by a guy named Crozier from 1913, the year before the Federal Reserve was steamrolled into existence and signed by dumbass Woodrow Wilson on Christmas Eve when everybody was at home trying to enjoy the holidays. Critics take aim at the NRA insurance program for shooters. I didn't even know this existed, but the NRA launched Carry Guard insurance this past spring. Rates range from $13.95 a month for up to $250,000 in civil protection and $50,000 in criminal defense if you shoot somebody and are found innocent. A Gold Plus policy that costs $49.95 a month provides up to $1.5 million in civil protection and $250,000 for criminal defense. The coverage kicks in if a court finds the person lawfully shot someone in self-defense or the case is dropped. The NRA isn't the only group offering such insurance. The U.S. Concealed Carry Association has been in the business much longer and provides up to $2 million in civil costs and $250,000 in civil defense. So, interestingly, critics call it murder insurance. But it is, it's interesting. And I don't know. It's pretty wild. Moving along to the wildfires, okay? We covered this a little. Well, we've been covering it a lot lately, actually. The situation in California. This bipartisan bill aiming to prevent West wildfires. As wildfires rage across California and the West, Democrat and Republican senators have joined forces to help rural communities better prepare for and prevent catastrophic wildfires. A bill introduced Thursday by senators from 3 northwestern states would authorize more than $100 million to help at-risk communities prevent wildfires and create a pilot program to cut down trees in the most fire-prone areas. Under a streamlined approval process, forest managers would thin pine forests near populated areas and do controlled burns in remote regions. The bill also calls for detailed reviews of any wildfire that burns over 100,000 acres. The bill comes as lawmakers from both parties also push to rework a federal funding formula that makes it hard for officials to budget for extreme wildfire seasons, such as the one ravaging the West this year. The current formula ties spending to a 10-year average for wildfires, even though fires are burning longer and hotter each year. The forces officials to use money meant for prevention programs to fight wildfires. So you notice how they sneak that little bit of propaganda in there, even though fires are burning longer and hotter each year. Yeah, I'd like to see a statistic on that because wildfires have been around for a long time. Of course, they're going to blame climate change without acknowledging the existence of geoengineering programs, without acknowledging the existence of directed energy weapons, without really taking a hard look at situations like that one in California, where it sure looks like a lot, in some locations, a lot of houses and cars were utterly obliterated while the nearby forests are fine. And I've been reading a book lately. I didn't do a video yesterday because I was kind of, I don't know, sometimes you just don't feel like it. Sometimes you don't know what to say. But I spent yesterday reading a great book, Under a Flaming Sky, The Great Hinckley Firestorm of 1894. It's about this huge wildfire that sweeps through northern Minnesota back in 1894. Pretty wild. But, you know, generally if a wildfire swoops in and destroys an entire city, it comes out of the forest, right? If you watch some of the footage from the California fires, there's even some footage shot on the night of October 8th and 9th, you know, that night, the 8th into the 9th, shot from a Sonoma County Sheriff's helicopter that shows these houses that are all widely spaced. You know, there's a house over here burning, there's a house over here burning, there's a house over there burning, but the forest surrounding it isn't burning. And it prompts the question, how did all these fires start seemingly simultaneously? You know, I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying with 100% certainty. You know, I don't know for sure, but I would say there's the possibility that directed energy weapons were used to start these fires out in California. So you can have all the bipartisan bills you want. It's not going to prevent wildfires if people are starting them on purpose. And especially if the wildfires are starting in the houses. You know, there's also a lot of footage that shows these houses appearing to burn from the inside out, while the trees nearby are just standing there being trees. So it's kind of weird, But, you know, I get accused of wearing a tinfoil hat for questioning the official story on that one, which is why I put one on today. Moving on to the national and international news. Oh, real briefly, sorry, I got one more article here about the fire, and I mentioned it in the description there. The Sacramento Bee reporting a couple days ago that the wildfires raise a fear of mass exodus by residents unable to afford housing. Okay? I still remember when I was working with Michael C. Rupert back in 2011, 2012, that I started working for him in LA while he was wrapping up this pilot for a show on the History Channel called Prophets of Doom. And trying to find a place to live in Sonoma County that he could afford. You know, we were looking for a place to rent. We wanted a little acreage to start up a little organic farm, try to be more self-sufficient and practice what we preach. And we found it. We got so lucky. It was a blessing that we found the place we did, but it was still very expensive relative to, you know, it was expensive. It was a lot of money. But Sonoma County, the housing prices have gone up a lot since then. And as the SAC-B reports, the fast-moving fires that ripped through Northern California last week worsened a problem North Bay officials have struggled with for the past several years, a severe housing shortage that is pushing out poor and working-class residents as prices continue to rise. The deadly urban wildfires, you see they call it urban wildfire because it started in the city, killed at least 42 people and destroyed more than 7,000 structures, wiping out entire neighborhoods in and around Santa Rosa, Sonoma County's largest city that is home to nearly 175,000 people. It's estimated that 5% of the city's housing stock is gone, with more homes destroyed outside the city limits. And it goes on, but there's a really interesting video. It's a 3-minute and 30-second video in this SAC-B article that I encourage you all to check out, where they're driving around with Sonoma County Supervisor James Gore surveying the devastation in Santa Rosa. And he's quoted as saying, this just looks like a nuclear blast. But it's wild. You see this footage. They're in the passenger seat while the Sonoma County Supervisor's driving around. And houses, you know, hundreds of houses to the foundation. Nothing left but the chimney. Hundreds of cars completely burned out to the point where all the glass is gone. It looks like the thing got sandblasted. The tires are completely gone. The wheels are melted out onto the pavement. And then around all these houses, there's a bunch of trees still standing. Just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense with their claims of extremely high winds. You know, some people reporting high winds, but other people nearby said there were hardly any winds at all that night. But generally, looking at how fires move in the presence of high winds, reading this book and other books I've got on wildfires, if a fire is that big and the winds are that strong and a house catches on fire, it's going to blow, you know, it'll blow. You know, if there's a house on fire over here, 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 and there's a pine tree in the middle, and there's really 80-mile-an-hour winds, the flames from those houses that are being completely obliterated, one of them is going to hit that pine tree and cause it to go up in flames. This video here on the Sacramento Bee article shows trees everywhere, standing there looking like trees with plenty of pine needles and foliage on them while the houses are gone. Speaking of which, Trump, you know, other crises where the poor are getting pushed out. Puerto Rico aid a 10. Trump praising his response to Puerto Rico. President Trump gave himself a 10 on Thursday for his response to the widespread devastation Puerto Rico suffered after back-to-back hurricanes created a situation that the island's governor described as catastrophic as he met with Trump at the White House. More than 80% of households in Puerto Rico remain without electricity about a month after Hurricane Maria, the second storm, dealt the island a severe blow. Asked when the 3.4 million U.S. citizens living there could expect power to be fully restored, Trump said it will take a while to build a new power plant or substantially renovate what was damaged by the storms. The president said most of the power that exists is being supplied by the massive numbers of generators he sent to the island. There's never been a case where power plants were gone, Trump said, seated alongside Governor Ricardo Rossello in the Oval Office. So it's going to be a period of time before the electric is restored. Okay, seems weird to me. Are these power plants really gone? Are they really gone? Looking at footage and looking at pictures from Puerto Rico, you can see the power lines are still standing in a lot of places. Are these power plants really gone? Is it that hard to get a power plant back online? Is it that hard to restring power lines? I don't think so. It shouldn't take months and months and months. But a month after the hurricane, 80% of the island is still without power. Trump was also asked by a reporter to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, the White House's response to Puerto Rico's crisis. I'd say it was a 10, Trump said. I'd say it was probably the most difficult when you talk about relief, when you talk about search, when you talk about all the different levels, and even when you talk about lives sailed. You look at the number. I mean, I think it was worse than Katrina. It was, in many ways, worse than anything people have ever seen. I would give it a 10, he repeated. During a visit to Puerto Rico earlier this month to survey damage, Trump compared what happened there to a real catastrophe like Hurricane Katrina, which struck New Orleans in 2005, killing hundreds when levees broke and flooded the city. Trump's comment was interpreted by some as minimizing Puerto Rico's suffering at the time when residents were struggling to get food and clean drinking water and coping without electricity. Okay, interestingly, Governor Rossello, you know, at least publicly, he says Trump's doing a great job. That contradicts sharply with what San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz has said. She's been a big critic of his response. And, of course, the president has also said that the military and FEMA and first responders can't stay in Puerto Rico forever, okay? Important to know with this situation in Puerto Rico and California and all over the world. Let me grab a book here. One of my favorite books, Mainstream, The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, okay? It's all about shock economics. Talks about shocking the system. Puerto Rico has been in debt for a very long time by design, but they're really nowhere near being as much in debt as the United States is, right? But this book, if you want a good read, this book lays out shock economics, okay? The old adage of the stock market speculating billionaire businessmen is buy when there's blood in the streets, buy in the wake of huge upheavals, whether it's a wildfire or a hurricane or a war, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's what's going on there in Puerto Rico. Again, with this, this came out 21 hours ago from CNBC. The unrelenting crisis in Puerto Rico is forcing people to drink dirty water. If you need evidence that the situation in Puerto Rico is still dire, look no further than the reports this week of islanders who have been forced to turn to water mixed with raw sewage for hydration and hygiene. It's been a month since Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico, and municipal water services have still not been restored to about a third of the people on the island. Meanwhile, nearly half of the island's sewage treatment plants remain out of service. So wastewater isn't necessarily being purified as it runs through the island's water system. In desperation, Puerto Ricans are bathing and washing clothes in rivers that have raw sewage pouring into them, the Associated Press reports, exposing them to bacteria like leptospira, which causes leptospirosis. Some Puerto Ricans are even drinking from condemned wells and Superfund hazardous waste sites, which contain potentially dangerous chemicals. Right? So the situation in Puerto Rico is still totally out of hand. Gardner T. Smith, thank you so much for tuning in. Fatima Nunsabuga, thank you for tuning in. Again, check out that article at the SAC about the fires in California. Okay, here we have a classic example of the mainstream media distracting the shit out of people. They made this huge scandal. They've made this huge issue out of how Trump interacts with widows and family members that he calls after they die in these illegal wars of aggression overseas, right? Why don't we have articles about how stupid war is versus articles about how the various presidents handle their job of, making phone calls or writing letters to the family members, the loved ones of soldiers who die in these illegal wars of aggression overseas. Washington in brief, senators are moving to boost transparency for online political ads, unveiling Thursday what could be the first of several pieces of legislation to try to lessen influence from Russia and other foreign actors on U.S. elections. The bill, by Democratic Senators Mark Warner of Virginia and Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, would require social media companies like Facebook and Twitter to keep public files of election ads and meet the same disclaimer requirements as political broadcast and print advertisers. Blah, blah, blah. Other lawmakers are working on legislation to help states detect if foreign actors are trying to hack into their systems. The DHS has said that 21 states have their election system targeted by Russian government hackers. Okay, they won't let the Russiagate issue die. It's funny, the coverage here, they don't mention it. They were mentioning it weeks ago that the total number of ads on Facebook and Google combined that they could link to Russian actors, the total cost on Facebook was less than $100,000. The total total cost of the ads purchased by potential Russian actors on Google platforms was also less than $100 or $100,000. Very small amounts of money. They never mentioned that. And then when they talk about the 21 states that had their election systems targeted, there was no evidence that anybody actually tried to hack into those systems. And that was openly admitted by the election officials in Minnesota, for starters. Again, we have it in the headlines there. The California fires caused over $1 billion in damages, destroying 7,000 structures, killing 42 people. The deadliest fires of all time in California. Yeah, sucks. And then in the wake of that, working class folks getting kicked out of their homes. The ignition metrics of these fires don't make any sense. Firefighters call it something they've never seen before. It's confusing. On the North Korea issue, again, don't worry about getting nuked by North Korea. You got it straight from the CIA. You don't have to take my word for it. The CIA is admitting that too. CIA Director Mike Pompeo said Thursday that North Korea is still months away from perfecting its nuclear weapons capabilities. He said there's a difference between having the ability to fire a single nuclear missile and producing large amounts of fissile material and developing an arsenal of such weapons. Okay, it goes on, but the long story short is we're not going to get nuked by North Korea anytime soon. It's just classic fear-mongering, fear porn, justifying the U.S.'s continued presence in the South China Sea, conveniently close to China. who would arguably be a much bigger threat than North Korea. China actually has the largest military force in the world, even though the U.S. spends so much more money on it. And other news from China, CNBC reporting that China's central bank just warned of a sudden collapse in asset prices. China's central bank has said it should prevent accumulation of risk from excessive optimism. Corporate debt is relatively high and household debt is rising too quickly. And it goes on and on. China will fend off risks from excessive optimism that could lead to a Minsky moment, Central Bank Governor Zhu Zhaishuan said on Thursday, adding the corporate debt levels are relatively high and household debt is rising too quickly. A Minsky moment is a sudden collapse of asset prices after a long period of growth. It's a crash, sparked by debt or currency pressures. So just a heads up there, the Chinese central bank manager is concerned about them crashing. Onward to business news. Here's your standard advertisement in Jackson Hole Daily. You can get yourself a, very, very, very expensive house if you got the money. Same thing. Chris Beale chiming in. Fire can spread from embers flying on the heated winds, very common in Australia. Also, California planted lots of Australian eucalyptus. In Australia, they produce small amount of leaf litter, and they're non-native. Wow, that's a long comment. But yeah, you're right. Fires can spread from embers flying on the heated winds. You're absolutely right, Chris. But again, what we saw in California was a bunch of houses all going up at once while the surrounding trees didn't seem as windy as they reported it to be. Business news, the Dow S&P 500 eking out new highs as the quantitative easing programs continue. No big surprise there. Adobe Systems. Yesterday we warned you not to download Adobe Flash Player if prompted because hackers were using Adobe Systems prompts to spread malware intended for government use. But Adobe Systems surged 12.2% yesterday after the software maker issued a strong profit forecast for 2018. So, I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Same with the Equifax hack. It's like Equifax's stock probably should have went to zero when they lost the information for 145.5 million Americans, but it didn't. We'll get into the scopes here pretty soon. What else am I missing from my headlines here? I want to cover everything that's in there so you don't feel like you got shorted today. Oh, and the mainstream media caught overinflating the risk of backyard poultry while ignoring the real threats to our food supply. Let's get into that briefly. My paper's falling apart, so I think I lost that page. But basically, in the Jackson Hole Daily today, they have an article about the so-called epidemic of sickness linked to backyard poultry. And I want to show you, this is how the mainstream media, here in Alpine, Freedom Town, I'm not allowed to have chickens. I'd love to have chickens in my backyard. My neighbors used to have chickens in their backyard, but they passed a law, city council passed a law against chickens because, backyard poultry is so dangerous, right? But it's really not, and I'm going to prove it to you by reading this article. The popular trend of raising backyard chickens in U.S. cities and suburbs is bringing with it a soaring number of illnesses from poultry-related diseases, at least one of them fatal. Okay, so we've had one person die due to a poultry-related illness caused by backyard chickens. Since January, nearly 1,000 people have contracted salmonella poisoning from chickens and ducks in 48 states, according to the CDC. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. More than 200 people were hospitalized and one person died. The toll was 4 times higher than in 2015. But illnesses can be prevented with proper handling. The CDC recommends that people raising chickens wash their hands thoroughly after handling the birds, eggs, or nesting materials, and leave any shoes worn in the chicken coop outside, right? Common sense. Don't drag a bunch of chicken shit into your house. Salmonella, that's the disease we're talking about here, is much more common as a food-borne illness. More than 1 million people fall ill each year from salmonella contamination in food, resulting in more than 300 deaths, according to the CDC. Okay, so they're saying 1,000 people have contracted salmonella because they have chickens in their backyard, and 1 person died. Whereas 1 million people catch salmonella from various food every year, and 300 die. So we have 1,000 times more people who get sick just from eating food than from raising chickens, and 300 times more people dying due to that. So backyard chickens really are not a big deal. It's not a threat. If you want to talk about problems posed by the food supply, I mean, there's a lot of them. Number 1, all the nasty pesticides sprayed everywhere. Number 2, all these strange food additives. Number 3, the healthy food is so damn expensive, but if you want to live off of corn dogs, Fritos, and Diet Mountain Dew, that's a pretty affordable lifestyle until you get the cancer, right? So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Speaking of pesticides and stuff, and this is in the Jackson Hole Daily Today, but my paper's falling apart here. In Germany, they're reporting these huge downtick, this huge loss of flying insects. Okay, this, they do real science in Europe still. It's kind of nice to see. German nature preserves have lost 75% of their flying insects. And entire ecosystems are dependent on insects for food and as pollinators, it places the decline of insect-eating birds and mammals in a new context, says researcher Hans de Kroon. Germany's insect population has declined precipitously inside protected preserves over the last 3 decades, new research shows. Between 1989 and 2016, the biomass of flying insects declined by 75% across 63 nature reserves, according to a new study published in the journal PLOS ONE. Although much attention has been paid to the decline of bees and butterflies, the latest findings suggest a problem on a much wider scope. Okay, it goes on and on. It's a good article. Ross Bryman says, punch the bag. All right, Ross, I'll punch the bag for you. I know you guys love to see it moving, so there. Bag has been punched. Now you get to watch that, get a little hypnotized here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, so this situation, when you lose 75% of the biomass of flying insects in an ecosystem, that's a really serious situation. And it's good to see the mainstream reporting on that. What could be causing this? Well, I would take a good look at the geoengineering. Hate to admit it, but this whole geoengineering thing is right up there with Fukushima in terms of our most disturbing and potentially catastrophic environmental situations, right? If you got poison, nanoparticles of aluminum raining down, that's going to affect everything, top to bottom. It's going to affect the trees, it's going to affect the humans, it's going to affect the insects, it's going to affect the water supply, it's going to affect the health of the soil. So hopefully someday the mainstream media will grow a pair of cojones, a pair of Coco Ricos, as David would put it, and potentially start addressing this issue. Boom. So, onward to horoscopes. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're already in the 53rd minute. You want your scope read? I'm all about it. I think I'm out of articles here. Again, the big news today in California and Puerto Rico, they're both facing a mass exodus in the wake of these unusual disasters. Yeah, if you want your scope read, lay it on me, put it in the comments. I'm not going to read them all unless you want to, unless you want it. So just throw me a comment there if you want your scope read. Again, I'm no astrologer, but people sure like the scopes, and I like reading them. And it's fun. People really chiming in good on the situation with the insects. Yeah, it's a big deal, you know. Most people don't really like insects, but at the same time, they die, we die. Brian Peterson and Chrissy Hoskins looking for Aries. Here we go with the scopes. 5-star day for both of you. Enjoy it. Opportunities come through a partner or loved one. You feel as if someone is offering you a gift. You have a lot to share, which reflects in the lengthy conversations you could have. Others ask for feedback from you. Make it your pleasure. Use your sixth sense as it will guide you. Tonight, with a favorite person. Cancer for you, David, the Coco Rico Sedano. If anybody's got questions about jiu-jitsu or wrestling, hit up David. It's pretty cool to see you being so active, David. I'm proud of you, and I appreciate your support, all the links you share with me, and your support on Patreon. So thank you so much, David. You are having a 5-star day, just like Brian Peterson, another Patreon subscriber. Your ingenuity carries you through several offers, all of which you would like to take. Sounds like you got big things on the horizon, David. Somehow, even if you make a decision, the doors to other opportunities will stay open for a while. Go over a decision carefully and listen to your intuitive senses. Tonight, good times seem to follow you. Chrissy already got Aries read. Anybody else want their scopes? Lay it on me. I don't know why the computer is so buggy and slow today. Here we go. Here we go. Taurus for Nicole Talere. Man, it's hard to pronounce names sometimes. It's good that we have such a diverse audience of people all over the world, but it is hard to pronounce some of your names for me. Man, my computer is so glitchy today. I apologize. I'm going to read Taurus here. 4-star day. I'm a Taurus too. After recent events, you might decide to defer to others. You might not want to proceed in the direction a situation might be heading. A key person shares a plethora of thoughts, which helps you make a decision. What you realize could be enlightening. Tonight, make sure that a friend is heard. So that's good to hear. We got a couple for score or for Gemini. Sorry again that I'm having such a hard time reading the comments. It's super duper glitchy today. Gemini, here we go. 3-star day. This work week might have been tiring, but you are not done. Follow through on a creative question that came up during the week. Your imagination and intellect often wander away from the facts at hand. I know how that goes. However, you often get your best ideas in these mental clouds. Tonight, out late. Okay. Nyla Clancy looking for Leo. Oh, you lying ladies. Drive me up the wall every time. I don't know how you do it to me. Stay centered, even with impending news that could be exciting. Some of you will be looking at changes in your domestic life. For some people, it could be a new home. You have had a dream or vision. Allow this possibility to manifest. Tonight, home is where your heart is. There you go, Leos. Jason Pfeiffer looking for Gemini. I read that one already. James and several others looking for Scorpio. Monica Pehe, I think I read Gemini already. Let's go Scorpio, 5-star day. Feel free to let others know where you are coming from. Optimistic responses easily could punctuate a conversation that you start up. You feel as if you can share more with this group of people. As a result, you might discuss more of what is on your mind. Tonight, romantic moments mark the night. For you, James Popella, so enjoy it. Same with you, Evelyn Keegley. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Pisces for Mais Markarian. Sorry if I mispronounced that. You know, like I said, I love having such a diverse readership in here. David, thanks, bro. Appreciate that. Here we go, Mais. 4-star day. News comes from a distance that could light up your day. You might be planning a trip with this person before you know it. Both of you work on the same deep emotional plane. Follow your intuitive sense when dealing with other matters right now. Tonight, listen to great music. Caitlin, I read the Taurus already. Oh, come on, computer. You're killing me today. Nicole, I read the Pisces for you. Brian, have fun at the corn maze. Have a blast out there. Corn mazes are always fun. Nyla, thank you. I love you too. I skipped Cancer. Paula, sorry about that. Here we go, Cancer. Here we go. 5-star day. I read that one, but I'm going to read it again. Your ingenuity carries you through several offers, all of which you would like to take. Somehow, even if you make a decision, the doors to other opportunities will stay open for a while. Go over a decision carefully and listen to your intuitive senses. Tonight, good times seem to follow you. Maybe I didn't read that one. Sorry. Anybody else want their scopes? Nyla, I'm glad that your scope is dead on. It's amazing. Sometimes they really are. I think that wraps up the scopes for today. I'm going to go ahead and shred the paper. Paula, you rock too. Daniel Riker, thank you as always for tuning in. Much appreciated. You know, we got 85 viewers here, and I wasn't going to ask this question, but I want your feedback. I'm going to check the comments here, and now that I'm done fiddle fucking around with the news, I can actually read more of the comments on point here. I'm trying to figure out what to do because the situation here, all right, we got a great following going here at Wake Up Wyoming, and I want to be here for all of you. This is actually like a great experience for me. It's so nice to have such an engaged community of people to interact with. You know, I'm not big on social media, I'm not big on technology, but at the same time, if it allows us to connect like we are, it's not all bad, right? Even though it's glitchy, like I said, I'm going to have a new webcam arriving on Monday. We should be able to get the phone lines going. That's entirely due to your support, right? Every dollar you invest in my efforts here at Wake Up Wyoming, in our efforts as a community to like have this great discussion where we'll get hundreds of comments every day and we share a lot of information. Again, thank you to everybody that shares links with me. Thanks to everybody that shares their personal stories with me. Thanks to everybody that has been supporting my work. Again, we're reinvesting it in not just new equipment, but upgrading the Wake Up News website to a business plan. Promise to be more active on there too. But I'm trying to figure out what to do. And here's the situation. I was hoping to hit the road again. I was hoping to head out to California, see what these fires are doing, or head down to Las Vegas, stop in there and check out the aftermath of the shooting there. But my truck's got some issues. You know, I think it's the transmission. I changed the transmission fluid, the distributor cap, the sparks plugs, made sure all my fluids are topped off, but it's still real herky-jerky. And I'm not asking for money, but I want your advice. What do you think I should do? You think I should try to get this thing fixed and hit the road? You think I should just hit the road without fixing it and hope for the best? That's option number 2. Or do you think I should stay put, stay here at the headquarters, so to speak, and just keep doing what I'm doing with the videos? You know, I've kind of felt this call to like hit the road and do the show from the road, but at the same time, I'm getting into a routine here, and it's going pretty well. We got a growing following here at Wake Up Wyoming, so I'd love to get your feedback. Let me know what you want to see more of from me. Let me know if you want me to hit the road. If I hit the road, I'll probably have more interesting content, more on-the-ground reporting, but probably less overall updates because I'll be out of service quite a bit, doing some rock climbing and surfing and stuff, but also going to the places where the news is really happening to get a good idea, interviewing people on the ground, stuff like that. So either drop it in the comments there. Jerry asked if I'm making tinfoil hats. Yeah, I made a tinfoil hat earlier today. I'll make another one to end out the story too. J. Scott Norris saying fix the truck, right? It's an 88 Comanche. I bought it several years ago for $1,200. So it's not the most reliable vehicle already. By the way, tinfoil hats are incredibly easy to make. That might be the, if I do stick around to Wyoming, that might be the extent of my Halloween costume right there. Pretty easy. But yeah, either drop it in the comments or let me know. Stay at headquarters and I'll do some research for you. Yeah, I like that. On the road, fins down. Fins down on the boards, you mean driving? Yeah, I can get down with that. Yeah. So yeah, let me know what you think I should do. And I'll keep doing it. Again, thank you all for your support. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop my Patreon link in there just because it's working. People are supporting it and it's helping out. You know, like I said, we're able to do more with more funds coming in. And again, I quit my slave job as a bartender. Now I'm trying to go exclusively with my research, my news, my writing. And, you know, if I can get one more Patreon subscriber every day, this thing will be rolling along. Right now, $308 monthly through Patreon. If I can get up to like over 1,000, then I know that I won't have to get another job when I run out of money and I can hit the road. And, you know, I know how to live pretty cheaply, pretty thriftily. Clearly, I need a new computer, or at least to get something else going, because this thing is getting glitchier by the day. But, yeah, that's it. Your boy Mog, thank you so much for chiming in. I'm going to read all your comments here and hopefully, I guess, restart this computer because it's glitchy as. Take care. Y'all stay active, stay optimistic, stay aware. I'm signing off for now. Appreciate all of you. One love. Peace.